But Mark, let's dive into our next topic. Taking a look at the NFL playoffs, and we were right about some things. We were wrong about some things. We'll probably get into that later when we go through our predictions for the playoffs as they start this week. A question I wanted to ask you, though, and I prepped you and the listeners for it last week because I knew if they beat the Browns, we were going to have this discussion. So I'm basically just going to ask you. They almost didn't. For the second straight year, they almost pooped the bed to an Ohio-based team in Baltimore. But the Ravens, ever since making the switch from Joe Wacko Flacco to Lamar Action Jackson, they are, what would that be, 6-1 since that time?
I believe so,
They were 4-5. They finished 10-6. They were 6-1. Their only loss in overtime. They could have been a perfect 7-0 going into the playoffs with Lamar Jackson. They've even played the team that they're going to play wild card weekend in the Chargers in Los Angeles, beat them 22-10 with Lamar Jackson. Didn't throw a pick, 204 yards, 1 touchdown in that game. Also had 39 on the ground. The thing I'm going to ask you, Mark, is can Lamar Jackson lead the Ravens to a Super Bowl championship?
No, I don't think he can. I think that the hype is real. This defense is amazing. I mean, the Ravens have one of the best defenses in the NFL, which shouldn't surprise people because it was more surprising when the Ravens defense wasn't that good for a little bit. And you know what the interesting thing is? We always say that these mobile quarterbacks can add wins to a team on their own until the defense gets the tape and the defense catches up. But when you have this guy like Joe Flacco who can win you some games, but not all of them, and then you make a switch to a mobile quarterback who can go and win games on his own towards the end of the year, you don't give the defense that much time to catch up. And I think that's actually kind of a not practical, but interesting strategy to make that type of a change to one of these guys who's so explosive on their own. The problem is Lamar Jackson, he is not a bad passer. I don't want to put that out there, but he's not as accurate as Joe Flacco. It has a whole different aspect to his game that Joe Flacco doesn't have. But I get worried when I see teams coming up. The Chargers, great defense. If they get to play the Texans, great defense. Like these type of teams that can shut him down if they run into them. I don't know that they will run into these teams because the Ravens obviously the Chargers they do. But the Ravens at the 4 seed, if they win, they're probably going to end up playing, they will play the Chiefs or the Patriots. They don't have an option to play the Texans. That's not possible. But there are good defenses in there where one of these defenses, the way you're going to probably beat Lamar Jackson, and I know that they've already beaten the Chargers already, but that's a different story now. They'll have that tape. They can review it. The way you're going to beat him is by doing a couple of things. Make him throw the ball. You have to make him throw the ball because that's where his weakness lies. And it's not just him. Part of it is the play calling on this offense. They do a lot of designed runs. And that's fantastic, but that does a couple of things. Get your quarterback hurt. Ask, Mike Vick. Ask RG3. That, of course, happens. But with the designed runs, if you can stop that, and you keep trying it, then you're just never going to challenge that defense by throwing the ball, of course. And when you keep stopping it, you're allowing that defense to pull men forward because they don't trust your arm. They don't trust you. They're going to do what the commentators always say. They're going to dare you to throw the ball on them. And that's what I easily can see the Chargers doing. And if the Chargers can turn their stuff around offensively against this good defense, then that's going to be a much different game. But the biggest thing, I don't think if this team goes to a Super Bowl, if it happens, it's not because of Lamar Jackson. It's because of the defense, obviously. The defense will kind of force the rest of the team into that position.
I'm going to say yes, but agreeing with you, where I think that this team could be, like, it's weird because both of the wild card teams, are not wild card teams because technically the Chargers are the wild card team. But I look at the Ravens.
But it's the wild card round.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the teams that didn't win the division. I look at the Colts, I look at the Ravens, and those two teams, I'm like, those are my dark horses in the AFC. I have a strong probability that the Colts are going to win their first game over the Texans just because it's a divisional game and plus how hot they've been playing. Mm-hmm. But I look at the Ravens too, and it's the same thing of they were so close to being 7-0 in their last 7 games since the bye coming into this wild card game. They've already beat the Chargers before. However, you know me, Mark. I like going back and looking at the history. And we've seen this play out before. Do you remember which quarterback 2 years ago we might have seen this play out before? And a guy that I loved to not buy his hype. And everyone his rookie year wanted to tell me how good his hype was, and I didn't want to buy it.
Talking about a Dak Prescott.
Talking about Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott, his rookie year, 13-3 Cowboy team. They were one of the best. Who did they play in their first playoff game? The Green Bay Packers.
Mm-hmm. He did decent in that game.
But you look at it, too, and the thing I find, and what I'm relating to this is, it doesn't matter, basically, what you did in the regular season, because you look at that. Week 6, they played at Green Bay. They got the win 30-16. You played Aaron Rodgers at home in the playoffs, you lost 34-31. So there's just because you've beaten the Chargers before doesn't mean you're going to beat the Chargers again. And that's why I'm glad you brought up that Dak Prescott didn't play bad in that playoff game. He had 3 touchdowns, 1 INT. To me, this team is going to ride or die on their defense. With that being said, I think that this defense gives them a good opportunity to go far in these playoffs. Because if you look at it, let's say because they're the 4 seed, let's say they win and Houston wins. You're going into Arrowhead. If I am the Ravens, I feel more confident in that game than of any other team. Because, yeah, you might have lost against the Chiefs in Arrowhead, but it was a 27-24 overtime game. We can beat this team. We know what it takes to learn from our mistakes and beat that team. Would they definitely go in there and win it? Who knows? Patrick Mahomes could have 5 touchdowns that game and blow them out. But I would feel more confident with that. Then you go in the next round. The Patriots, to me, are a huge question mark. And I told this to Dave when I was out to dinner with him yesterday. I said, in our playoff predictions, I'm probably going to doubt the Patriots, and then they're going to make or win the Super Bowl. It's just going to be, they're going to lose in the AFC title game, and then they'll make or win the Super Bowl. They can turn it on, but everything this season, Tom Brady's attitude with the team, the wide receivers that he has around him right now, Gronk not being Gronk the entire season, this has been, I would say, perception-wise, the weakest Patriot team I have seen, to where I look at the road for the Ravens, and I don't want to knock the Texans. The Texans could go into New England and beat the Patriots.
Sure.
But the Patriots are just the team I would have favored. The road for the Ravens, though, if Lamar doesn't turn over the football and this defense continues to play as strong as it has been, this team could ride to the Super Bowl if the planets align for them in their playoff run.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think the Ravens can win games. And part of that is Lamar Jackson's ability to extend plays, and he is so fast, and he can make people miss. But what I'm kind of counting on is a couple of things. There's tape out there now. They've seen it, especially the Chargers. They've played it already. The Chiefs, they've played it already. There's teams have seen this.
Well, and with the Chiefs, they'll be coming off of a bye. And they'll be well rested.
And you've got some strong defenses that you're going to go up against for sure. No, most of the teams on the AFC side are more offensive based. But you've got some good teams. What I think is going to happen, any team that's going to play the Ravens, they are going to sit there and know it's probably going to be a close game because that's a good defense. But we have to go out there and we have to make him throw against us because he doesn't do that well, and it's not all his fault. Like I said, part of it's the play calling.
The scheme.
The play calling wants him to be a mobile quarterback. They want him to run. They design it that way.
After they drafted him and was like, no, we're gonna work on him to be a passer. No, you let him do what he's good with.
Yeah, exactly. And and I do wonder. And I'm not saying that Lamar Jackson's going to mess up, but let's say he goes out there and against Chargers, throws like 2 picks or something like that. Is there any potential of them switching back to Joe Flacco? They could.
I don't see it.
I mean, and I know this is different because Peyton Manning, but Peyton Manning lost his job to Brock the Cock, Osweiler, and then Peyton after. No, this is week 17, but after Brock was kind of shitting the bed, Peyton Manning came back in and took the job back. It's possible. Now, I don't think so because Lamar Jackson, I think they really do know like he is the future. We're going to get rid of Joe Flacco. So I think they will stick with it. But that's the way you got to do it. If you're going to beat the Ravens, you do have to challenge him to throw all over you. And he's going to struggle there.
Well, and I look at his stats. The fewest passing attempts he's had in the game this year that he started since he became the starter was 19 that first game against
which is understandable.
Bengals.
It's his first game.
After that, his worst game, I would probably say, was either the 12 of 21, if not the 12 of 22 against the Chargers. But still, he completed what? If you look at percentages, the worst one was that Charger game where it was only 54% of his passes were
His
being
average
completed.
is 58%. That's not that good. You don't want to be sub 60.
You want to be at that 60. That's the line we look at. But the thing you also look at, the only time he had more than an interception a game, the Ravens, his second game. Like, since his second game, he threw an interception, done 2 interceptions.
I'd hope not. He's only throwing the ball like 20 times.
Hasn't thrown an
interception.
interception.
If he throws 2 interceptions, that's 10% of his passes.
Now, the thing that also comes into it is, like you mentioned, his yards on the ground. That Cleveland game, he didn't have any touchdowns through the air, but he had 2, almost 3, because he went, I'm going to pull the ball back. He should have just put it out there, and it would have just crossed the plane. It would have been a touchdown. You'll learn from that. But to me, there's something about this Raven team that I look at it where, I mean, to maybe move over from Lamar a little bit, just the team in general, I kind of look back to, who was it? It was on First Take. It was one of the former Giants. I think it was like Mario Manningham, it might have been. No, it was Victor Cruz. That's who it was. Victor Cruz was talking about how there was one season where we started off like 1-6. And we're like, we're not going to make the playoffs. Boom. We go on a run. We get the wild card. He goes, we won the Super Bowl that year.
9-17.
So it's like, you can kind of go ahead and change your fortunes like that. The only thing that I find, and this is about this playoff matchup in general between the Ravens and the Chargers, is I almost wish that it wasn't the Ravens versus the Chargers, because both of these teams are so hot right now.
Yeah.
Ravens, like I mentioned, 6-1 in their last 7. The Chargers really, before their bye, 5-2. After their bye, let's see if I do the math, 7-2? Like, they've just been consistently hot all the way through to where I almost don't want a team to lose this game, but I know it has to happen.
Yeah. And here's the thing that I look at for them. I mean, the defense is great, and the topic is more about Lamar Jackson than the team. I don't want to take anything with that. I think any game they play is going to be a close game. But I look at this Charger matchup that they have. This was probably his best passing that he had. Just a little bit over, 50%. He's a 54% completion, 12 of 22, 1 touchdown. The thing that surprises me is that the Chargers knew how to take away his weapon. They didn't let him run the ball on them. 13 attempts, 39 yards. They were able to stop him from running. No running touchdowns. If they can do that again, I think that they can do that. Because I think that the Chargers were a little surprised of he does have a bit of an arm. He can throw the ball on us. Not amazingly, necessarily, in a 68 His long was a 68-yard pass in that game. That helps out with that, 204 yards, quite a bit. He's averaging about 10 yards a pass with that. But they did challenge him, and unfortunately, they lost a little bit. Part of that was honestly just the Chargers' offense couldn't do it against the Ravens' defense. So if they can figure that out, which they've got all the pieces that they need.
Like, you look at Phillip Rivers' numbers that game, 181, 0 of 2, touchdown to interception.
Yeah.
The rushing, and I get that with the Chargers rushing, it's like, yeah, Melvin Gordon only had 41 yards. Really look at what they're doing receiving-wise. They weren't doing much of that because, I just mentioned Phillip Rivers' numbers. So, I mean, that's also another thing with the Chargers is if we look at the history, they're usually a team that, if they come in hot, they usually poop the bed a little bit.
They cool off.
And it's like, oh, wow, the Chargers, I thought they were going to do something, and then they don't. Like, are we going to see that from a Charger team like we've seen so many times in the past?
Well, it's possible. It certainly is. Lamar Jackson's interesting to me, but the thing I want to say, though, because of fears of RG3,
who's on this team?
He is. This team needs to stop running so much with Lamar. Look at a guy like Cam Newton, a guy who ran all the time. Doesn't run so much anymore if he doesn't have to. He's going to throw the ball a little bit more often. You got to turn Lamar Jackson into that. A guy who's going to pass more often. Chicago, we just saw it with Mitch Trubisky. We love how much he runs, then he gets hurt. And all of a sudden it was like, hey, Mitch, maybe you don't run so much anymore. Maybe you slide a little bit more often. That'd be nice. Because you don't want this valuable weapon, the guy who, without Lamar Jackson, this team is not probably in the playoffs right now. And I know a ton of it is the defense, and the defense is the one that made the interception. They stopped Baker Mayfield.
But with Joe Flacco, this team probably would.
Didn't go on the run.
Would be in the
they wouldn't have
right
gone
now.
on the run. And it's going to be very interesting to see Baker Mayfield in his post-game conference said something of like, oh, it's going to be me and Lamar in this division. To which that's just one of those things where you're like, calm down, buddy.
You're trying to get people to hate you.
Yeah, I'm like, just calm down a little bit there. But also the fact is, like, I don't doubt that Baker Mayfield's going to be here for a while.
It's Will Lamar.
Will Lamar be healthy, or are they going to ruin him like the Redskins ruined RG3? That's the fear, because that happens.
And Redskin fans can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe there was, like, at the time with RG3, the coaches would tell him, throw the ball away. You don't need to run. It was more of an RG3 thing of like, hey, I got to extend the play. I got to keep this going for my team, and I'm going to go and use my legs and run instead of just saying, oh, I can throw it away and live to see another down.
Yeah, and I know here with the Ravens, they are very into, let's do some designed runs. We've got the weapon. Let's use it.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens in our predictions. We're going to hold that off until the final segment. So if you're waiting for that, go check it out on YouTube. Or if you're on the podcast, just keep listening on through. But let us know what you guys think down below in that comment section. What do you expect from the Ravens-Chargers matchup this year? Can the Ravens make a run with Lamar Jackson and be a Super Bowl team or even a Super Bowl winning team in 2018-2019?